Hi, my name is Jordan Sillams, and today I'm going to talk to you about the sport development of Ben Cousins, the former West Coast Eagles and Richmond Australian Football League AFL star. I selected to analyse Ben Cousins as I know very little about AFL, its delivery systems, and game format. Most of the information gathered in this analysis has come from the book Ben Cousins, My Life Story, written by Ben Cousins and published in 2010 by Pan Macmillan Australia in Sydney. Sport delivery systems are the systems used to help a sportsman reach their full potential in any given sport. They help to filter through participants to pick the best players to move up the ranks within the sport, as well as provide the players the help and guidance needed to perform at the top level. It is important to understand how these systems work so they can be further developed and improved in the future. Without a full understanding of how a sportsman progresses from a beginner to the elite, young sportsmen may opt out of the sport as they do not have a clear pathway to follow. It is also important to understand these systems to ensure those progressing are doing so because they have the right attributes. Sports delivery systems are different from sport to sport. An example of this is cricket and AFL. Both have very different methods of sports delivery. Cricket uses a numbered ranking system so they can keep track and watch the ratings of their players as they improve or lose form. AFL has a draft system that young players can enter to try and be picked up by other clubs, as well as reserve leagues that almost all AFL players go through. The draft system works on young players get ranked from better to less, and the lower you finish on the ladder, the better the choice you get in player. So if you finish last, you get the top pick. If you finish second last, you get the second top pick, and so on and so forward. This helps to keep the AFL even and helps get the young players into good teams. This analysis will discuss the sports delivery systems that allow Cousins to progress from a junior player in his local club to a player that went on to win the Charles Brownlow Trophy, better known as the Brownlow Medal, for best and fairest player in the AFL. I will use close reference to the type of competitions and format of these, as well as some of the major events and competitions that Cousins has competed in over his 14-year AFL career. The type of sport Ben Cousins was involved in and how it became involved. So Ben Cousins has AFL in his blood. His father Brian played for both the West Coast Eagles and Geelong. Cousins would always accompany him to his trainings and games, which is where Cousins says his real love of AFL came from, and his dream of following in his father's footsteps began. As a child, he also played tennis and cricket because his father told him to try different sports to know that AFL was his favourite. Some of the major competitions and events that Ben Cousins was involved in at different levels. So, as a young player, Cousins played in local leagues, competing in his region for Bull Creek Leeming Football Club. He was then selected in his high school's football team, which he played in on and off for about 2 years. Cousins was spotted as a talented player by the East Fremantle Football Club, who played in the Western Australian Football League, also known as the WAFL. Cousins played 10 games for them before being selected to play in the AFL with the West Coast Eagles. He then remained in the AFL for about 14 years. During this time, Cousins competed in the annual pre-season AFL Cups and was selected to play in the International Rules Series in 1999 for Australia. The format of these major competitions and events. The format of the pre-season Cup competition has changed over time. When Cousins was playing, it was a knockout competition. The 16 teams were divided into groups of 4 and played each other once over a 3-week block, with the winner of each group moving on to the semi-finals. The 2 winners of the semi-finals then played in the final to become the pre-season premier. This system was used from 1988 to 2011. In 2011, when the Greater Western Sydney Giants and the Gold Coast Suns joined the AFL, the pre-season cup became a competition with 6 pools of 3 teams. Each team played each other once, and the winner of each pool moved on as well as the next 2 teams with the best records. In 2014, the format changed again, with every team playing 2 matches and no final or winner. AFL is a round-robin format where 18 clubs compete in a 22-match competition for top spot on the competition ladder. At the end of the 22 matches, the top 8 teams on the ladder compete in elimination finals. The following table is an example of how the elimination finals are played. In week 1 of the elimination finals, the top 8 are split into a top 4 and a bottom 4. The top 4 will play week 1 as a double elimination finals. The bottom 4 will play week 1 as single elimination finals. Week 2, 3 and 4 are played as single elimination finals by everyone. The Western Australian Football League, or WAFL, This league works to a similar format as the AFL, except here there are 8 teams and it is the top 4 at the end of the round robin going into the elimination final series, as shown in the table. This works nearly the same as the AFL, with the first semi-final being a double elimination and the second semi-final being a single elimination. After this, the preliminary final and grand final are all both single elimination events. Ben Cousins had the ability to play in any format of tournament because of his personality and natural ability as an athlete. One of the main things I learned from Cousins' book is that once he had a focus, he would push himself past any limits to achieve the goal, whether it was in a preseason knockout tournament or a round-robin season game. In AFL, Cousins' focus was to be the best at the game and play as hard as he could to make sure his team had the best chance of winning, and that's what he did, regardless of the format. In 1996, Ben received the AFL Rising Star Award in his debut season. 1998, 1999, 2001, 2002, 2005 and 2006, Ben Cousins was named in the All-Australian team. In 1999, he received the award for AFL Goal of the Year. In 1999, he also played for Australia in the International Rules Series. In 2001, 2002, 2003 and 2004, he won the West Coast Eagles Best and Fairest Player. In 2002 to 2005, he was the captain of the West Coast Eagles. In 2005, he won the Brownlow Medal. In 2005, he won the Leigh Matthews Medal. In 2005, he also won the Western Australia Sports Star of the Year Award. And in 2006, he played for the premiership-winning West Coast Eagles. This top 10 list of Cousins' achievements highlights just what a great player he was. Cousins doesn't mention them all in his book, they can be referenced on other sources. But the one he does mention that he is most proud of is when the West Coast Eagles won the premiership in 2006. Cousins also briefly talks about winning the Brownlow Medal in his book. He describes it as if receiving it didn't mean much to him at all. He said, "As soon as I won the medal, I put it in my cupboard and focused on the grand final ahead. To be voted the best player in the game for that year and simply put it aside like it was nothing is a show of his determined character." The premiership loss in 2005 hurt Cousins, so he put all of his concentration and effort into winning the 2006 grand final, which is why it means so much to him as a West Coast player and an AFL player. The sports organisations that facilitated Ben Cousins' progression in the AFL. Bull Creek Leeming Football Club started the AFL journey for Ben Cousins. He played all of his junior football for this club, and it was this club that nurtured Cousins to fall in love with the sport. The coaches at the club taught the basics of the game that would serve him very well into the future. Cousins also played for his private school team in year 11 and 12 at Wesley College. It was here where Cousins started to master parts of his game. His coaches refined his skills and ultimately gave him the opportunity to live his dream. In 1994 and 1995, Cousins joined the East Fremantle Club for their pre-season training. Bull Creek Leeming Football Club was in their catchment region, which is why Cousins went to this club. This club played in the WAFL, which is part of 3 Australian-wide reserve grade competitions. The other 2 are VFL and the NEAFL. The clubs that play in these 3 competitions act as reserve grade teams and feeder clubs to the AFL sides. All 3 competitions are the level below AFL and are still tough to play in. Cousins played his first of 10 games for the club on the 8th of April in 1995. Cousins wasn't at the club for long, but in the short time he was there, they prepared him for his AFL debut. The structure of these clubs is a mix between local and AFL clubs. There are some paid positions, for example the head coach and the players, but there are also some voluntary positions, such as administration roles. The AFL does provide support to these clubs to help keep them up and running smoothly. After playing only 10 games for the WAFL side, Cousins made his AFL debut for the West Coast Eagles under coach Mick Malthouse in 1996. Malthouse and the club mastered Cousins' skills and made sure his performances stayed regular and at the high standard they knew he was capable of. How did these sports organisations contribute to the success of Ben Cousins as per the definition of sports development? Sports development is concerned with creating pathways for players to progress in sport. from learning early foundation skills to achieving the highest levels of excellence. All of the above mentioned sports organisations contributed to Cousins' career and growth as a player. As Cousins worked his way through the pathways and closer to the top, the skills being learnt became harder, as did the mental and physical strength to keep going. In the early years of his career at his local club and school side, Cousins was learning the basics, the rules, and how to play the game. Once he moved into the East Fremantle side and then to the West Coast Eagles, he was learning how to become the complete player on and off the field. The idea of sport development worked extremely well for Cousins. He progressed through the pathways with ease and gradually learnt more skills and harder skills on his journey. I do believe that the development system failed on one account though. I strongly believe that Cousins was rushed into the AFL too early. Yes, he was advanced with his skill ability and did not look out of place at all in the West Coast Eagles side, but even Cousins said in his book, "I was too immature." He was not mentally ready to be an AFL player when he made his debut, and this is why drugs became an issue. He couldn't cope with the enormous pressure put on him as a star player, and so turned to drugs. In 2001, when the sports delivery system finally led Cousins to be captain of the West Coast Eagles, I don't think he was ready for that either. In the book, Cousins' father talks about how he went and had a meeting with the club to try and persuade them to not make him captain because he didn't think he was mentally ready for the additional responsibility. After becoming captain, Cousins admits to thinking he was untouchable, and that's when the drugs became harder and more frequent. The Waffle League. To begin with, I knew the rough format of the AFL competition, but wasn't sure how the final series worked. Now I do. The thing that surprised me most is how easy the AFL sports delivery system is to follow. There is a very clear pathway from beginner to elite that is well mapped out for any aspiring player. The system they use is very effective and works well. It very easily helps the best rise to the top and get noticed. And with clubs from all around the country, playing in reserve competitions gives players from all states and backgrounds the chance to be picked up and drafted by AFL clubs. In conclusion, the sports delivery system of AFL is very effective, and Ben Cousins is the perfect example of how it works. He started as a junior, played for a senior side, moved his way into the Waffle, and then onto the AFL with the West Coast Eagles. Cousins had a natural talent, but without the coaches and managers to guide him along the way, he wouldn't be where he is today. The delivery systems also helped create Cousins as the type of player he ended up being. The competition formats, which challenged Cousins to want to win every game, and the competitive level he could always play at, also greatly helped in shaping the player he was. Thank you for listening.